Rex, can you hear me? Let's get started. Let's get the show started. Okay, let me see here. Hey, how's everybody doing? I guess I was unmuted. I was talking to my man Rex, and his name is Rex, not Max. That's an inside joke for those of us here inside. Okay, so how y'all doing? Good to see you. I had a fun afternoon. I went to an engineer. I was doing some site work on some land that we're looking at. One of my students and I are looking at buying and building some apartments. That will be our objective here, and it'll be a lot of fun. And it's a lot of fun. And it's there's a story behind this land. And I drove by it today. I took a look at it. You wouldn't even know it's there. You wouldn't even know it was there. This student of mine did a great job digging down deep and finding this lot. Then adding to the lot by knocking on doors abutting the land and just coming up with some really cool stories. And so, this is the type of deal that you make yourself because you got out there and you made things happen. So bravo to my student. Who is this? I think the Zoom user is who I'm actually talking about. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, Zoom user. Once you learn how to make your name, look at Bill. Even Bill Caliphate knows how to put his name on the moniker there. Let me see. Say who is Zoom? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That was Max. That was Max. That was Rex highlighting that. So, all right. Well, what we're gonna do today, I'm just gonna bang through some more lingo, some more multifamily lingo, just so you can get the hang of it. Let me see if I can make this happen. Let me try using this one. Yeah, here we go. All right, so we're gonna do some more terminology, multifamily terminology. And once again, I got to figure out how to do this. Let's see. Let me hold on, everybody. How do I do this? Okay, just move this. Yeah, there we go. That'll work, but that's too small. So let's use this one. Let's see if we can use this. Okay. All right, this is an interesting one. that I come across, and there's a twist to this one. What's the difference between the net operating income and the net ordinary income? That's a trick question. The answer is the software. Huh? Yeah, here's why. When you're looking at a real multifamily property management software report or accounting, when you look down at the category that is the result of the income minus the expenses, it will clearly state net operating income. When you see that, you will know you're dealing with a legitimate property management software program. If it says net ordinary income, then you know you're looking at QuickBooks, and it's not a report that's typically can calculate out all the ins and outs of a multifamily property. So that is one of the issues here, is the software. So if you see net ordinary income, you know that the report probably isn't designed to handle all those specific nuanced categories that are strictly unique to multifamily. Net operating income is what we want to see. All right, let's see that's this thing I was looking for. Rent concessions. Rent concessions, that's a category. That's what we call an income reducer category. This goes towards reducing the income. Folks, you don't like to see rent concessions, and you look for them all the time, and you always want to make sure that you're calculating for them. And here's what I mean. I was looking at a property one time to buy, and I'm doing my due diligence. I stick the name of the property into Google, and something pops up on Craigslist, and it was a rent concession. First month, $200 off. Huh. That's weird. And I look at the date on the category, the date on the advertisement, and it was recent. That's strange. You see, they never told me anything about a rent concession. They never told me that they were giving away units with $200 off for the first month. So I go into the accounting and I look to see, hey, why aren't you calculating for any of these rent concessions? So they came back and said, oh, we just kind of threw that up there, and we haven't discounted anyone's rents yet. And we just thought we'd put it on there. So in other words, they're trying to load up the units as fast as they can while I'm looking to buy the property so they can drive up the NOI. And don't like that. But let me give you an example of some of these rent concessions that you look for, that you want to make sure that you're not getting stuck with. Free rent for the first month. Ooh, that's not good. That's not good. What I mean by that is, if you sign up today, first month is waived. You never want to give away the first month free, because the first month free, there are some people who are what I call professional concession shoppers. They can live for a whole year for free by looking for those units that say first month free, because the first month is free. They move in, they don't pay. Second month comes along, they don't pay. You start the eviction proceedings. Third month comes along, you're in the proceedings, you got a court date, they haven't paid. Fourth month, depending upon what state you're in, the person gets evicted, and now you lost 3 months of rent, and they move on to the next first month free property. Prorated monthly rent. Hey, we want to get the person in right now. We'll prorate the rent. You don't have to wait the first month. We'll get you in now. We'll concede that rent. Free internet and utilities. Ooh, that's a big one. Utilities, free utilities. That's a big drop. No security deposit, folks. This is a trick. This is a trick, because I see this happen a lot in Texas. They offer properties units with no security deposit, but they do charge you an administration fee, which turns out to be the equivalent of a security deposit to the tenant. The tenant ends up paying for it anyway. The problem is that it gets accounted for differently, and you, the new owner, get screwed. And here's how. That $250 comes in. It shows on the books as income, admin income. It drives up the net operating income for that year, and it's non-recurring. The money never comes back. You buy the property. You've overpaid for the property because the NOI is artificially inflated because of that admin fee. And then the tenant goes to move out, trashes the joint. You didn't get any security deposit because it wasn't a security deposit. It was an admin fee. So you end up getting screwed twice. You overpaid for the property because of fake income, non-recurring income. And then then you get no security deposit to fix the unit that the guy trashed, and he's gone. So always look for that admin fee income when you're when you're doing your due diligence on a property. Carve it right out. Take it right off the top, or recategorize it as a security deposit and tell the landlord or the owner that you're buying it from that you want that back in the form of a security deposit. No pet fee. They waive the pet fee. That's a good one, but people, I tell you, that pet fee is really a good income. Pet deposit and pet fee. Pet deposit is a one-time deposit, not a security deposit. It's a pet deposit. That's income in your pocket. You don't have to escrow. You don't have to account for. I mean, you do have to account for it, but it is one-time fee, non-recurring. The pet fee is a monthly fee that those dog lovers will pay that fee all the time. Or we'll paint walls a certain color. We do this a lot at renewal time. Hey, if you renew, we'll paint one of your walls an accent color just to clean up your unit. And that's a very simple one. Also installing new appliances. Hey, I'll tell you something. If you're buying a C or B property, it's not brand new, you can get away with refurbished appliances. There are some guys out there that's all they do is refurbish appliances, and you can go pick them up dirt cheap. Go grab them, stick them in your properties. No one will know the difference. They look fantastic. And then some of those places have a parking fee that you can waive and give away as a rent concession. But those are some of the examples. Always look for them. You want to make sure what is it that the landlord has to do to get the units full. And if he has to concede the rent, that's a red flag. Why can't he just sell his properties, sell his units market to market? Okay, next one is examples of submarkets. Okay, this is something very important, and I see many people miss this. So a submarket's a geographical area defined by streets, natural barriers, and the specific properties in which a property is in competition for customers. Between 40 and 50% of a property's overall performance is explained by submarket factors, while only 10% is explained by metro factors. And this came from an article, Submarkets Matter, Applying Market Information to Asset-Specific Decisions. And for example, let me give you an example. Boston submarkets are Metro West, Beacon Hill, the South Shore, North Shore, Roxbury. So when you're looking at a property and you're trying to figure out what the cap rate is, you're not going to use the same cap rate for a Beacon Hill property as you would for a Roxbury property. All right. Now, I know that because I lived here in Boston for years. But when you look at another town, another city, it's going to be the same way. You have to understand the submarket that you're in and adjust your cap rate accordingly when you're valuing the property. All right. So not all submarkets are the same. The values are different. The vacancy is different. If you go look at Marcus and Millichap and you pull up one of their market reports, usually 2 pages or 4 pages. It's a big market. They'll spend 4 pages on it. But if you flip to the back of the 4th page, they have a section where they show all the submarkets of your area, and they break down by the vacancy rates and by the cap rates. And this is a perfect example of where you can see the differences between the submarkets. Even the vacancy is different in submarkets. Make sure you take that into consideration when you're evaluating your markets. All right, next is HVAC versus ABP. What does that mean? HVAC is heating, ventilation, air conditioning, is what we call all bills paid. Versus utilities are tenant paid. Okay, HVAC is all bills paid. That means the landlord is paying for all the utilities. Versus a tenant paid property where the tenant pays the utilities. Okay, a little history lesson here. 1980s. Buildings built before 1980s tended to be all bills paid. That's why you don't like those properties. You don't want, anytime you're in competition with your tenant and the utility companies, you're going to lose. So make sure that I only look at tenant paid properties. And the reason why it's 1980s was like the cutoff is that's because Jimmy Carter was in office. Remember those days? Well, we had something called the energy crisis, and energy crisis was killing landlords because they were paying all the bills and the costs were going through the roof, and you couldn't increase the rents fast enough. So what was happening was new construction coming down the pike. The landlords were saying, the owners, the property owners were saying, hey, don't build me an all bills paid property. You got to figure out a way to so that every tenant is responsible for their own utilities, so I don't have to worry about it. And those properties became absolute gold because all of a sudden the technology was you could stick a hot water heater and a furnace in a closet and make it the tenant's responsibility, make it a tenant paid property. That also speaks a lot to the type of tenant that you have. Many times C-class properties, C-class residents can't get the utilities turned in in their own name. Their credit is so bad. So therefore, they go to an all bills paid property. And don't be tricked here either. You might buy a property that is physically a tenant paid property where the units have the hot water heater and the furnace in the closet, but the utilities are in the owner's name because it's a C-class market. And they don't want an all bills paid property. They don't want to have to pay their utilities. So you end up paying the utilities for them. That was a property that I had. And let me just, you had to understand how they calculated, how they entered the tenants into the property management software program. So you're looking at the rent roll, and some tenants' names are in all caps, and other tenants' names are a lot higher, lowercase, uppercase, and lowercase. Okay, and so those people that were all caps, those were I paid their utilities. If it was lowercase, the tenant paid their utilities. So that's how we've learned. And so when we're doing the due diligence, we had to know that, and they weren't going to tell us. So that was an eye opener. That was a tricky one. So, all right, let's see what else we got going on here. All right. Okay, so how do you solve for those all bills paid properties? You do something called RUBS, Ratio Utility Billing Service. Okay, that's a company, all different types of companies that will come in and put meters on your services in your buildings and charge the tenants based upon their usage, based upon the meter that they have tied up to the like the furnace, the chiller boiler. It's never a one for one. You never so if you spend $1 in utilities, you're not going to bill back the tenant $1. Usually ends up being about a 2/3 bill back. You bill back the tenant 60 or 70 cents on the dollar. So it's never a one for one on a bill back. It's a way to recover some of that lost income, but it's never perfect. Folks, the best solution is stay away from all bills paid property because it comes with problem tenants. That's what I say. And of course, I'm going to get pushback from my favorite students who say, I make a lot of money on C-class property, Charlie. Yeah, well, good for you. All right, so it's here it is, RUBS, Ratio Utility Billing System. RUBS is a method of allocating utility costs in apartments and other multifamily units. This actual utility bill for the property is distributed to each resident based on an allocation formula. Factors in the formula can include one or a combination of the following based upon the number of occupants. So, for instance, if you want to do like a water, you want to bill back for water, you charge based upon how many people are living in that unit, or you base upon the number of bedrooms, as you can see, a number of bathrooms and number of bedrooms as well. You can bill it based upon the square footage of the unit, or for water, the number of water fixtures. You can get very creative when you're doing that. So just think outside the box, or just don't buy an all bills paid property. All right, here's another terminology. An ALTA survey. You see it all the time. You see it on your letter of intent, that part of the data that you want for the due diligence is a current ALTA survey. But how many people really know what an ALTA survey is and what it means? I mean, you kind of should know that, because you're the one buying the property. You're the one asking for it. Well, ALTA stands for American Land Title Association. The ALTA survey is the gold standard of surveys. It's top of the line. You're going to get all the information you need on an ALTA survey. If you don't get an ALTA survey, or you get a lesser survey, it could be what's called a boundary survey. Okay. And it doesn't do as much as the ALTA does, but it still will show where the boundary is, and where the buildings are and the improvements are on the property. Let me just tell you, folks, if you're looking to buy property in Texas, let's say, in Texas, you're not going to get an ALTA survey. In Texas, you get a TLTA, a Texas Land Title Association. That's the standard in Texas. All right, so just keep that in mind. So if you see a TLTA, you'll know, okay, that's the equivalent of an ALTA survey in Texas. I don't know of any other states where it's unique to the state. I know they exist. I just can't think of any states off the top of my head. So that's something you might want to just keep in mind. Make sure you understand that in the state that you're making offers in. Okay, and especially if you're making an offer in Texas and you're using one of my letters of intent with my Schedule 1 listing of all the things, and you put in an ALTA survey, well, go and fix that. Put in a TLTA, because that's what you're going to get. You're not going to get an ALTA. All right. What's a feasibility period? All right, let me just see. Okay, no, feasibility period. All right, so feasibility period, actually a couple of, this can stand for a couple of different things. Feasibility period for many contracts is also the due diligence period. It's also the inspection period. Some people may call it a feasibility period. It should be clearly defined in the letter of intent, or clearly defined in the purchase and sale agreement. So make sure that if you see feasibility period, that's what it's referring to as a due diligence. It could have a separate definition altogether. It could have something to do with the title insurance period, and you're using part of the process during the title insurance is a feasibility period. Make sure you understand it and you read the definition in the contracts, especially if you're the one writing the contracts. You should know what it means. So just keep it in there. If you want to change it from feasibility and into inspection or due diligence, go right ahead. Whatever works for you, whatever you're more comfortable with. Okay, the MAI appraisal. Because remember, this is something else that you ask for in the due diligence. If an appraisal exists, you want to see it. So you stick the MAI appraisal request in the Schedule 1. And if they don't cross it out, but they go ahead and they sign the purchase and sale agreement to say, I will give you the my MAI appraisal, they're saying they have it. If they don't have it, they should cross it out. Those are always the problem those are always a problem. Look at Llama. Those are always the problem that whenever I was negotiating a purchase and sale contract, if the letter of intent, see, I include all the data that I want in the due diligence. I include that in the letter of intent. So in the very first communication I make with the seller, I tell them everything I want. If I get the offer countered and back and nothing has been changed in the schedule one, I know I'm going to have a problem when I start to draft the purchase and sale agreement, because I know the seller has not looked at the schedule one. They just haven't. Because I know for most properties, there are things in that survey, in that schedule one, that they don't have. And you're going to see one of them in just a moment. So if they don't have it, cross it out. Don't wait until the negotiation of the purchase and sale before you tell me you don't have this information. Tell me now. And one of the things is the MAI appraisal. If they have one, they shouldn't be giving it to me. But if they have one and I ask for it, well, and they sign the contract, they're supposed to pony it up. All right. And here's what it means. AI stands for Appraisal Institute. Masters of Appraisal Institute is the highest designation an appraiser can get. It's the gold standard. So that's what the MAI appraisal means when you see it on a request for the due diligence information. It's the gold standard. The ALTA is the gold standard. Keep that in mind when you're looking at these contracts. All right, the cure period. Okay, this is interesting. My next slide is going to be a lot of reading, but let me explain it to you. So the cure period appears in the purchase and sale contract. It might appear in the letter of intent, depending on how detailed your letter of intent is, but it appears in the purchase and sale contract under the section of the title insurance. Okay, so what exactly does it mean? Okay, I'm going to read this to you, and I'm going to highlight and I'm going to explain it as we go. But this is the title commitment section in the purchase and sale contract. So within 10 calendar days after you sign the contract, after the execution date, the seller's going to give at his expense a current title commitment letter from the issuance of an owner's policy of title insurance to you, the buyer, from the title company, title insurance company, for the project as chosen by the buyer, because that's what we do, is we say that the buyer gets to choose the title insurance company, by the buyer in the amount of the purchase price, together with all copies of documents constituting exceptions to the seller's title to the project. Exception documents. Okay, here's how it works. When you get a property under contract, the seller's got to give you a title commitment letter within 10 days. He's already been working with the title insurance company. So they're going to go out there and issue a title commitment saying, if you buy this property, we will issue a title policy in your name for this project with these exceptions. And in the back, there are exceptions, title exception B1 and B2. Those are the sections that cover the exceptions to the policy. All right. So what does this mean? What it means is it's like you're buying a life insurance policy where they put in exceptions saying, we'll pay, but only if he dies this way. Or we'll pay, but he better not die that way, or we're not going to cover it. This insurance policy is issued listing all these exceptions that they won't cover. And you say, no way, I'm not buying that policy. So, okay, here's your commitment letter with the exceptions. Now it's your turn. The ball is now in your court. All right. Buyer shall have a period of 15 days after your receipt of the title commitment and the survey in which to review such items and deliver the seller any objections that you may have regarding the commitment exceptions. Any matters to which the buyer does not object within this period shall be deemed to be permitted. Okay, so if you sit on your hands and you don't say anything, all those exceptions become part of the contract and you can't object. So when you get that title commitment letter in the mail at your house during the due diligence period, you don't throw it on the desk and say, I'll get to it later. You turn that thing right over to your local counsel and tell him you want these exceptions removed. And so it's your local counsel's job to notify the seller or the title commitment, the title insurance company that, hey, we don't want these problems. We don't want these. We have to have these removed, or we're not moving forward. Okay, folks, many of these exceptions, you're not going to get removed. You can, but this is your chance to get your earnest money back if you want. During the due diligence, the inspection period, there are different ways to get your earnest money back, depending upon whose contract you're using. If you're using my purchase and sale contract, I got about 5 get out of free jails cards for you. But this is one of them that's standard in most contracts. But if you don't object, you forever lose your opportunity to take advantage of this particular provision. And what usually happens is you come back and you say, hey, I'm not buying this property because of these exceptions. Mr. Seller, you've got a cure. Remember, this is the whole brought up by the cure period. This is the opportunity after you've told the seller what exceptions you don't want, then it becomes the cure period for the seller to fix things. And most of the time, the seller doesn't do a damn thing. So what are you going to do? You can either quit, you can either accept the exceptions, or you can buy a rider for the insurance policy that says, I will buy this policy, but I'll also buy this rider that removes that exception. And now I can live with the policy. So that's typically what happens during this process. All right. Here's another one. As-built survey. Folks, out of all the properties I've ever gone through in due diligence over a 15-year period, there was only one where I actually had the as-built surveys given to me during the due diligence period. So if I get back an approved offer, an accepted offer, and the guy hasn't crossed out as-built survey as one of the documents that he says he's going to give me, he hasn't crossed it out, and I really think he's going to give it to me, they don't have them to give. And I'll explain why. So this is a red flag. If it comes back and this isn't crossed out, that's a red flag. I'm going to have problems with this seller giving me all the documents he says that he has during the due diligence period. An as-built survey is a really cool thing. It's a really cool thing because what happens is if the guy's building the property himself and he's got the architectural drawings and he gives it to his general contractor and the general contractor goes out there and starts to build, the general contractor, when he's up there swinging the hammer, decides, you know what, this 2x4 is better off over there. So we're going to change the architectural design from this to what I consider is the better way to do it. So when that happens, the architect makes note of all these changes. And then when the building is completed, now they rewrite the drawings and they create an as-built survey so that if something goes wrong on the property, they can just pull out those architectural drawings and they'll know what to fix. Best example was there was one property that I owned where no, I didn't even own this one. I was actually at the property and the maintenance man was having trouble with a light, and he couldn't figure out what breaker was for that particular light. It was an exterior light. He couldn't figure it out. So he pulled out the as-built survey and he could figure out by looking at that where the breaker was and how he could turn off the electricity to go fix that light. All right. The only time I've ever seen it in all of my years, I was trying to buy a portfolio of 6 properties in Texas from the guy who had built all the properties. He's the only one that had all the as-built surveys for all of his 6 properties. It was kind of cool to see. Let's see. I got a question here. Hey, Charles, good to hear you. All right. What happened if the seller doesn't do anything and doesn't want to come down in price during the due diligence? Well, Lewis, that's your decision. I mean, the whole purpose, this gets into this whole concept that I hate called retrading. Retrading is a 4-letter word that the brokers try to use against you. Oh, don't try to retrade this deal. Oh, yeah. Well, listen, the only reason why I'm retrading this deal is because you didn't tell me everything in the first place. Had you told me everything in the first place that I didn't have to discover during due diligence, well, then we wouldn't be changing the price or we wouldn't be discussing it. I just had a case where one of my students was selling a property, and the buyer did a little retrading because of interest rates. Hey, I get it. This is your opportunity. This is where you got to negotiate. You got to sit down and say, listen, guys, when I started this process, the interest rates were 3.5. Now my money's about to go hard. I'm at 4.75. That changes all of my numbers. Unless we fix this here, I can't go ahead with the deal. Well, what do? If you're the seller, you got to think, well, the next guy is going to have the same problem. Do I want to let this guy go? We're already 60 days into the deal. And I know he can close. He's already 60 days into the deal. Do I just accept his terms, change terms, or do I go back out to the market and try to find somebody that can give me my price, even in light of today's circumstances? So what do? You got to negotiate it. If it's really don't be petty. Don't, this is, whenever you're, I had many times, when you're making offers and you haven't seen the property yet. If a seller says to you, I like your offer, but I'm not going to accept it until you've walked the property. I appreciate a seller who says that. And what he's telling me is, hey, my broker did a great job putting some pretty pictures out there on the internet of this property, but it ain't that pretty. And you better come down and take a look at it, because I don't want to go into contract with you only for you to come out here and say, whoa, this thing is a lot worse than I ever expected. I want you to know what you're buying. So come on out and take a look at it. If you go and you start the due diligence process, and at the end of the day, you come back and say, well, listen, the roofs are in really tough shape and all the screens are broken. The parking lot needs to be paved. Hey, those are all things you could have easily seen had you walked the property. Don't come back and start to change the price of the deal because of things that were so grossly obvious. Anybody could have seen them, and it should have been your price should have taken that into consideration. Oh boy, there was one other thing I want to say. Changing the pricing. It's gonna come back to me. But there was one other thing I wanted to say about the due diligence and changing the prices after you see the property. Oh, it's gonna come back to me. Sorry, Lewis. But Lewis, let me know that if that answered your question. Okay, occupied NTV. This is when you see this. Okay, when you're looking at a rent roll, and it's really a good rent roll. It's off of a legitimate property management software program. Okay, thanks, Lewis. It's off a legitimate program. You're going to see a category of tenants called occupied NTV. That means that the property is occupied, but the people have given their notice to vacate. So that's a person that's moving out. And if it's a really good software program, you're going to have all of these people categorized properly. It is so good because it allows you to manage your property well. It gives you the opportunity to manage for those vacant. Okay, geez, this guy's moving out. Let's go. We're going to have to get our team in there on this day, make sure, trash out the unit, clean it all up, get that thing as rent ready as possible, as fast as you can. And that's why seeing this type of information on the rent roll makes managing the property so much easier. You don't want to have those types of property managers who know that people are moving out. It's during the due diligence process. These people are moving out, and all of a sudden, their tenancy never changes on the rent roll. Only come to find out when you buy the property, those people have skipped months ago. You want to get a night, and you want to keep your business up to date like this as well. Oh, that water's good, man. See that splash? Got me right back in this part of the nose. And can anybody name the movie about the glasses that had the little thing right here to hold onto your nose to keep your glasses from sliding down? Can anyone name the movie about the inventor of that item? And I tell you right now, Rex, who is producing this today, because Molly's at a conference, Rex, who is producing this, will know exactly what movie that is. Okay, you get an award if you get that. You win a toaster. All right, now the draft PPM. That is the draft private placement memorandum. That's a document that your securities attorney creates. That jerk, John, you got it, buddy. You got it. I tell you, I went down the jerk rabbit hole. That's why I'm always referencing that one. I went down the jerk rabbit hole. No, Bill, it's not Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Oh yeah, Bill's trying to make it sound like he's so young. He's referencing a 1990s movie. No, Bill, I'm talking about 1980s movie, early 80s. Yeah, you got 100% on that one too. Okay, the draft private placement memorandum. The draft private placement memorandum is the document that your securities attorney drafts. It is a crucial document. It lives in the begin. It lives for the period of time before the deal is closed. After that, it becomes a historical document. It can only be used against you after that time. You go back and reference it if your investors say, "Hey, you did a lousy job, and we're going to go back and take a look at the PPM and what you said you were going to do." So every security, if you're looking to raise private money, you need to have your own private placement memorandum drafted by a competent securities attorney. It tells the investors what they're buying into. The money comes in, gets put into the company. You sign off on the operating agreement. You become a member of the company, and the private placement memorandum document is never seen again. If you're running that property and you're running that business, all you care about is the operating agreement. The private placement memorandum does nothing. Everything is merged into that operating agreement that you signed. So, but you always want to make sure that it's accurate, that you're trying to run your company based upon what you told your investors you're going to do in the PPM. But even in the PPM, it gives you wide latitude and says that, hey, this is what we're trying to do, but things may change over time. The Jerk was a great movie. Okay, form an SPE. SPE is another term that you need to know. You'll see this all the time. Your lender wants you to form an SPE. You are going to form an SPE. What's an SPE? Folks, it's nothing more than a single purpose entity. You are going to form an LLC for the sole purpose of owning that company. That is an SPE. All right. So why does the bank want to do this? Because the bank is lending to one property. The bank is lending to one business. It doesn't want you to add in other businesses to take money away from the one SPE that they are investing in. All right. So, even when you file your taxes for that one SPE. SPV? Single purpose entity, single purpose vehicle? No, it's an entity, Llama. I don't know what an SPV is. Tell me what an SPV is. Okay, but let me tell you, let's put this into practice and where this is why I know that there's more to that story about those 4 properties being foreclosed on in Houston. Okay, that guy owned, well, they took back 4, but I think he owned some other ones as well. So here's the deal. The guy goes and buys these properties, sets up an SPE, a single purpose entity. Arbor Financial comes in and lends money to 4 different entities, okay? 4 entirely protected separate classes. If one of them doesn't pay its mortgage, the bank comes in and takes that one SPE, and the other, when buying when buying an existing business, single purpose vehicle. Yeah, I mean, I guess Llama, that's when buying an existing business. I don't know if you mean it's like an asset purchase, so you're using a single purpose vehicle. But SPE is the term that we use in multifamily when you're setting up a single purpose, your own entity to own that property. So one entity doesn't pay the mortgage. The bank cannot come in and foreclose on all 4 properties. Only one of them. They're all standalone, single purpose. So, how was the bank able to foreclose on all 4 entities on the same day? Because it didn't have anything to do with the mortgage payments being made. It had to do with somebody who was unique. The one common denominator among all 4 entities was up to shenanigans. And the bank said, we're taking them all back. Oh, we're making our mortgage payments. Doesn't matter. We don't like, there's a bad boy provision in all 4 of our contracts, and we're triggering the bad boy provision, and we don't care that you made all 4 mortgage payments. This is what we're doing. Single purpose vehicle, also called a single purpose, is a subsidiary created by a parent company to isolate financial risk. Yeah, AJ, we call it an SPE. That's what it is in the loan documents. Yeah. So the waste clause, the bad boy provision. What they did is they triggered the fraud, waste, and abuse. FWA. Once again, our government has given us a new acronym: fraud, waste, and abuse. They would have triggered that bad boy provision and seized all 4 properties as a result. So, folks, you set up single purpose entities to protect, but if you there's some common denominator among all your properties, there you have it. Okay, what's next? Operating agreement. Okay, so the OA, that document is the Bible of the company. This document has essentially merged everything that you've told your investors into one document. Your investors have to sign off on this document for them to become a member of the company. And so they sign off on the OA, they become a member, and then you start performing under the terms of the OA. If anything goes wrong, the first document we all go back to is the OA. Remember in the PPM when we said, hey, we're going to give you a 9% preferred return, cumulative, blah, blah, blah. That was first talked about in the PPM, the document that the securities attorney made. That document, that provision about a preferred return for people, special people, gets merged into the operating agreement, typically in the form of a new class of members. And that new class of members is going to define exactly what was said in the PPM. So that PPM, remember I said it becomes a historical document. It goes away. We never even look at it again. Well, wait a minute. What about the preferred return part? Oh, we cut and pasted that and we stuck it in the operating agreement, and you signed off on it. And I signed off on it. And everybody that's a member signed off on it. So that's how we get rid of the PPM and we merge everything up into the operating agreement. So the operating agreement becomes the Bible of the deal, of the business that runs and owns the property. All right. You are putting your money not into a property, you're putting your money into a business. And the business is defined by the operating agreement. Folks, listen, you really should read the operating agreement and understand how it works. What if somebody wants out and they want to sell their membership interest? Well, read the operating agreement. There's a whole procedure defined in there for what to do. Well, what happens if the general manager, the general partner, is doing a lousy job and we have to get rid of them? Go look in the operating agreement. It's all defined in there, so you can see what's happening. Okay. Now, the operating agreement is to a limited liability company. Let me see if I finished it. Okay. The operating agreement is to a limited liability company what a subscription or what a articles of organization. No, what is it called? For a stock company, a shareholder agreement. Maybe that's what it is. A shareholder agreement is to a limited liability company what a shareholder agreement is to a stock company. Maybe that's what I was thinking when I wrote this. All right, subscription agreement. Okay, so here's let me walk you through the process. You go to the securities attorney. He puts together the OA, the subscription agreement, and the PPM. 3 documents. When you're trying to convince the person to invest money with you, you give them the PPM. And along with that PPM, usually either a separate document or the back of the PPM is a subscription agreement. The subscription agreement is the equivalent of the order form. You know how you fill out the order form on things? Put in your name, put in your information, answer a bunch of questions, and then you put down the price that you're investing, and then you sign off on it. That's all the subscription agreement is. But that subscription agreement then gets given to the general partner, the managing member of the LLC. He evaluates it, makes sure you qualify to be a member of this group, and then he signs off on it and says, you are worthy. You can come into our tight-knit little company, our closely held company. And then in order to seal the deal, that's when you sign the subscription agreement. So it's 3 documents when you're using a securities attorney. Private placement memorandum, followed up by the order form, which is the subscription agreement, followed up by the operating agreement, which is the document that lives forever. The other 2 get stuck in a file for when you get sued. Okay, just keep that in mind. And you always, if you're the lead on a deal, if you're the lead on a general partner on one of these deals, you document and you save these documents, and they become part of the online service that you use to keep all your documents in line. Oh well, AJ, I'm not. I don't even know what they are for public companies. Subscription agreement is to a private placement memorandum, or to an offering memorandum. Yeah, a PPM and an offering memorandum are essentially the same thing. We talk about OMs, offering memorandums. Well, what's the difference between an OM and a PPM? It could be one and the same. It could be. The Securities and Exchange Commission requires that the PPM have certain statements by law. They have to be in there. The offering memorandum doesn't necessarily have to have those. The offering memorandum can be simply a marketing document, but you can't go without a PPM. If you're showing everybody the OM, ultimately you'll have to show them the PPM to make sure that you're keeping everything legal. All right, let me see. 28 slides. What are we doing? Oh, wow. All right. Gross potential income reducers, gross potential rent. That's the top line number. That's if everybody paid top market rents on every single unit, every single month for 12 months. No one was ever late. No one ever missed a payment. Nobody ever died. Nobody ever moved out. The gross potential rent is the top line number, the absolute most money your property can make in a 12-month period. And your property is located in La La Land. There is no place like that because people die, because people divorce, because people move out, because people are late on their rents, and things go towards reducing that GPR. Yeah, look at this. That's all I need. The ashtray, the remote control, the paddle magazine, and the chair. That's all I need. Oh, I need this lamp. I'm going to need this lamp. Yep, that's right, Zoom user. Let me get rid of you here. How do I get rid of you? Max, how do I hide? There we go. Good. All right, so let's see what we got going on here. Gross collected rent. Then what happens? We collect the money. I'm supposed to. My gross potential rent is $1 million, but I only collected 900,000. Ooh, wait a minute. What happened to all the other $100,000? What happened to them? Well, there are categories of income reducers that go towards accounting for the difference between that $1 million and the $900,000. Folks, this is what you need to understand regarding the financial statement. And this is why I teach it. I teach you how to understand your multifamily financial statements better than your accountant. Because here's the thing. Why do we care about that missing $100,000? It's not going to pay any rents. It's not going to pay any utility bills. It's not going to pay any payroll. It's gone. All I care about is what I collected, the gross collected rents, because that's money in my bank account. So why do I care what the gross potential is? And why do I care about categorizing that $100,000 into particular categories to come up with that 100,000? Because your trailing 12 financial statement on a multifamily property is a managerial accounting. It's the best thing in the world. It provides you with those categories that help you manage the property better. Okay. So if we take a look at some of these income reducers and we understand how much they are and what it means when you own a multifamily property, it's going to help you be a better manager. And it's going to allow you to change your behavior based upon the numbers. So if I see a loss to lease figure that's more than 3% on my trailing 12 financial, what that means is that my market rents and what I'm actually collecting have a 3% differential. I am behind the market by 3%. Okay. All right. I'll just keep going up on the rents. Okay. What happens if you're buying a property and your loss to lease is 10%? Right away, you might think to yourself, whoa, that's awesome. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to start driving up the rents. When you start driving up the rents too fast, people move out. Well, then you can go up in the rents even faster. But if you get a really big loss to lease, that means you're also going to have higher turnover costs, higher physical vacancies coming up. That's okay as long as you account for them or you manage for them and you're able to get those higher rents, because that's going to drive your net operating income and that's going to make the property a nice property to own and operate. So that's why I lost the lease. Physical vacancies. What happens if I've got a 20% physical vacancy? That means And look at economic vacancy. What happens if I have a 20% economic vacancy? Do I manage the property the same way to solve that problem from physical vacancy to economic vacancy? Absolutely not. The difference is physical vacancy is the lack of heads in beds. Economic vacancy is the lack of hands on wallets. You have to solve the problem differently. If it's a physical vacancy problem, you've got to market more. You've got to increase your marketing budget. You've got to go out and start to knock on doors, bring people in, paper the Walmart, put, things underneath the windshield wipers. The economic vacancy means that you're bringing in deadbeats. You've got to better qualify anybody coming into the property. And that's going to solve your economic vacancy. See, we call them vacancy, but we manage them entirely differently. But if we lump them all together and don't distinguish them in the multifamily trailing 12 financial, we'll never know how to run that property the right way. Employee units, that comes off, that goes towards reducing the income as well. And then concessions, we've already talked about concessions. Let's see, every multifamily property I have bought had 10% or more loss to lease. Okay, so listen to what Lama, how am I doing? Do you agree with everything I said? Loss to lease is a great opportunity to drive NOI, but it comes with additional costs, and you've got to be ready for it. That's the thing, is if you are trying to pitch me on your deal and you show me a pro forma where you are showing me a 10% differential in the loss to lease, and I look at your projected expenses over the next year to 2 years, and you're showing me that you're going to get that loss to lease from 10 down to 2. But then I look, because I know how to run a property. I look to see how much you have budgeted for turn costs, for vacancy. Your vacancy hasn't changed. I mean, no, that's not how this works. You got to kick people out. You're going to lose months of vacancy. I need to see that in the numbers. It's going to result in the cost, but you're going to get me a higher rent, which gets me a higher NOI. And a year or 2 years later, this property is going to be running great. But in the meantime, there's going to be a lot of expenses that you need to account for. So if I'm looking at your financials and you don't take that into consideration, I know you don't know how to run a property. So that's the thing you want to make sure you don't get caught up in that. All right, let me see. Oh my gosh. Let me see. Income, loss to lease, physical. Oh, I've already hit these. I think I'm done. Holy cow. Wow. 30 slides. Bam, 5 o'clock, right on the money. That was not planned. That was neither planned nor wanted. Can anyone name that one? Every child should be planned and wanted. Who said that? I know, I can see her face. I can see her saying it. I can see Rush Limbaugh making fun of her too, okay? Anybody want to tell me who that was? Anybody? All right. Great presentation. Thanks, Lama. I appreciate it. All right, so that is today's presentation. Blam. Thank you very much. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, like it. Really help me build this up. I'd love to have 100 people every week on this call and getting some good advice. Jocelyn Elders, I love it. Rex is my man from the Philippines. Oh, he had to have Googled that. There's no way he could have got that one right. Oh, Rex, you cracked me up, buddy. Say it again. Every child is a planned and wanted child. That's what she said. And Rush Limbaugh used to always make fun of her. She was the Surgeon General for the United States under Bill Clinton because Bill Clinton knew her in Arkansas. That's how they met themselves. All right. If anybody has any particular topic, let's get it over to me. Send me an email. We got some cool stuff coming up. I got some additional changes to the market investor system tool that that we're putting together. That thing is just it just keeps getting better and better. I'll share it with you once we go live with the updates. We have the event coming up. We have a couple events coming up. I'm going to have that all ready for you next week. I'll even give you guys a special discount code that if you sign on up here, I'll give you a discount code. I'd love to see you in Florida, or I'd love to see you in Chicago. One of them is my my MultifamilyOS system, and then the other one is the Chicago is the hotel to apartment conversion. Let me give you another example of how the nuances of hotel conversions is so subtle. It's you can't just say, hey, I'm going to convert this property. There's so many things you have to take into consideration. So Lama, the dates are July 10th and 11th for the masses. 8th and 9th, my clients and I are having our mastermind down in Fort Lauderdale, and then 10th and 11th, that's a Saturday and Sunday. That's when we open up the whole public. We're gonna have some great speakers. It's gonna be awesome. And then 10th and 11th, and then the the Chicago is July 28th and 29th, and that's going to be the hotel conversion in Chicago. But let me give you an example. I got a great text message from my partner on a hotel conversion that we're in the process of doing, where the electrical engineering report came back and said that the hotel can support, the electrical service within the hotel can support stoves. Okay, so not all of them are built to have an electrical system capable of supporting every individual unit having its own stove. It could handle a cooktop, but it couldn't handle a stove. And so we couldn't build out real kitchens. But because the electrical system can support a stove, we can build out full kitchens in our conversions. And when we do that, we now qualify for GSE funding, government-sponsored entities. We can get loans from Fannie and Freddie on our properties. That opens us up to a whole new host of investors who are looking that we can sell, or we can refinance it with a GSE, and we can get non-recourse paper. Who would have thought of that when you're just looking at the property as to some of the issues that come up? So that's it. That's the story. I'm gonna talk next week. I'm going to talk Rex. Ooh, it's one of those things. It's like getting a song in your mind. Next week we're going to talk more about the conference and everything. So we'll do a big plug on that, and it'll be a lot of fun. So, all right, everybody, great. Thanks for coming by. Do you think there will be downtown office conversions of empty space next to residential units in the next 5 years? It's entirely different. Hotels are a lot easier than offices. Just think about the footprint of an office. Think about, what do we do with all that empty space in the middle? Think about how an office building is built. Bedrooms want windows. Living rooms want windows. That means when we convert an office, we have to get a whole lot of dead space in the middle. All right. And if that's the case, what ends up happening is you have to be able to buy that office building at a dirt cheap price. I had a great podcast with a guy just the other day, and we talked exactly about office conversions versus hotel conversions. So Lama, you got to check that out. I don't remember who the speaker was. I think it was a young kid from like the Utah, Nevada area. I had a baseball cap on, but it was a great conversation. The kid was so knowledgeable It was really, really good. You want to check that out. And we talk about office conversions there. So, all right, everybody, great to see you all. And we will chat again next week. Take care.